This is part 2 of my video on how to survive a hospital stay in today's healthcare system. Stay tuned. Hi, and welcome to my channel. Well, this is my part 2 to a video I did on Sunday about how to survive a hospital stay and live through it should you get sick. And I'm going to wrap things up in this video. So if you didn't see the first video, I'll have it linked below. So to finish off, which I could go on and on for quite a while, but I think I got my points across. But to finish off, I just want to talk about a few more things. Number one, make sure you have a living will. Do that now. You may not end up in the hospital at all, or you could end up in one in a year from now, or your loved one could. Have a living will and a DNR already done. That's so important because anything can happen. We don't know what we're going to get hit with. And I'll give you an example. Like in Ken's case, I would do anything to keep him alive, but I would not make him suffer. In other words, if he were 85, 88, I don't know what the number is, the exact number, but I would imagine somewhere in your mid-80s, and you had to have CPR, I personally would not get it or want it because it would break every rib in your body. It would crush your chest. They have to push really hard, and the pain from just one broken rib is just unbearable. And to have all your ribs broken, that would be a horrible way to go. So that's what I mean by, be specific. Have things in detail. You may have a DNR in a case like that, but in other areas, as long as you can recover and get back on your feet, then it's okay. Those are things you need to think about and make sure you have them if you ever have to enter a hospital. Another thing would be when you leave that hospital or your loved one, get good discharge instructions. I know they give you papers, say you had surgery and you have a wound or something, and they'll give you papers that say when to clean it and how to clean it and all that. But there's so much that goes on, and we're not nurses, so we need to know the details. Have a list of questions ready for the day of discharge so that you can ask everything you need to ask. That's really important. And also, one more thing I should have talked about in the first video is look for a workaround. These people can't use common sense anymore. They have a script, they have a protocol. They follow it for every person, even though we're not all alike. That's just it. They don't have time to think of other ways to combat a problem or make you comfortable. They just have one way and that's it. Now, this is a pretty pathetic story, but I have to tell you. Ken had a J-tube put in his stomach because he could not eat by mouth at the time. So they were giving him Glucerna through this stomach tube. There were these big tubes about this high and about this big around, and they would put that in the Glucerna, fill up the syringe, hook it to the tube, and then pump that into his stomach. Well, it took 3 of those big tubes to have all the Glucerna. And then after that, they had to flush the tube out and use a whole tube of water to run through there. Well, it made him so sick because he hadn't eaten in over a month and he hadn't had anything in his stomach like that. So it would just fill it up, and he said it would come all the way up. He could feel it right here. It made him feel pukey. It made him throw up all over the place. And they gave him those feedings about 4 times a day. It made him sick as a dog. He already had so many problems. He didn't need to be vomiting on top of that. But there was no choice. Well, after, I don't know, 3 or 4 days, as the speech pathologist was working with him and swallowing and that, she determined that he could now have fluids. He could drink. So that was great news. Well, they came in that day to do the tube feeding again. And, he's like, oh no, please, I just don't want to throw up again all day. And something, again, just a common sense thing. A 10-year-old could have thought of this. It's not something brilliant. But I said, well, why do you have to put the glucerna, which is like a protein drink with a bunch of vitamins and minerals, why do you have to pump that into that tube? If he's allowed to drink liquids now, why can't he just drink it? Because when you put it through the tube, it causes him to vomit severely. And the registered nurse, looked at me and said, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know why anybody never thought of that. And I'm like, well, it's not that nobody ever thought of it. They can't think. They don't have time to think. They can't say, oh my gosh, this patient is so uncomfortable. We're making him throw up with all those broken ribs and you're, vomiting and the pressure on those ribs. It's just, this is what you do. So again, it's just common sense. So she said, well, let me ask the doctor. So she went, she asked the doctor. This was in Encompass. He was in Encompass by then. She asked the doctor and he said, well, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, it doesn't matter as long as he's allowed to swallow. So no more tube feedings. He still has the tube. He has to keep it for a while. But he didn't have to have that pumped in, that feeding tube in his stomach. And he never threw up again. I mean, that's just common sense. So, if you have any suggestions, ideas, things you can think of, bring them up. Don't assume their way is the only way or the best way. Use your head. And then when the patient gets out of the hospital, you don't have to, again, do what they say. They may say, oh, they need rehab services. They need PT, OT, physical therapy, all the things. And maybe they do. But you don't have to go with the service they recommend. Again, they're going to give you a list of 4 or 5 places and tell you to call them and have people come out right away. Sometimes you may need that, but sometimes you don't. Now, when Ken left Encompass, and I'm so happy to say he was discharged from Encompass on Friday, August the 1st. He still has a very long recovery ahead of him, but he was well enough to be discharged medically. Well, he still needs physical therapy. He needs to get his strength back. He needs to get his energy back. He's very, very weak and very, very thin from not eating for, over a month. And so we didn't feel like we needed home health because he was coming here to our house and we were going to take care of him and help him. We took a class at the physical therapy hospital. They showed us what he needed to do each day, and it's not a whole lot because he doesn't have the strength to do it. But they felt we would do fine, and we did. And he could take a shower. He may need help getting to the shower, but he can sit on a chair and have the shower on. So things like that. He could dress himself. So you don't need the occupational therapy. So just again, use your own judgment. If you need it, get it. But if it's not necessary, don't just stay in the loop of the system going round and round. That's not the thing to do. And the last few things I should say is, I don't think I said this in the first video about the hospitals and how they're run today or not run, but you can always contact your ombudsman for your area. That's OMBUDZMAN. You contact the ombudsman if you're having a problem in the hospital. You don't feel the care is right. You don't feel your loved one is being taken care of like they should be or getting the right medical attention and treatments. And they are like the super advocate. So they come in on your behalf to voice all your complaints and get answers. And no hospitals or nursing homes ever want to see an ombudsman because they work for the state and that's marks against the hospital or a nursing home. So you always have that option. Again, when you're out of the hospital or the patient is out of the hospital, contact your local, it's called Agency Area on the Aging. They have a lot of resources. They can be very helpful. And to my knowledge, they pay up to $1,500 for home health care to help you out. Now, it could be more now. It was $1,500 5 years ago when we had my mother. But that would at least give you, a couple hours a day to have a certified nursing assistant come in just to help you or your loved one maybe take a shower or do little things that they can't quite do yet. And they'll pay $1,500 each month towards that kind of care. Plus, they can direct you to so many other resources when it comes to, being at home or in a nursing home or anything. So that's another very good place to get some information from. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, I could go on and on, but I'm trying to keep myself in control here. One other thing I have to mention, this is my personal opinion, but if you have a Medicare Advantage plan, get rid of it. As soon as open enrollment comes around in the fall, get on regular Medicare. I know many people think that these Medicare Advantage plans are wonderful because, oh, they're so much cheaper and you just pay maybe a $30 copay every time you go to the doctor or whatever. What you don't know is they don't cover anything that you need. So Ken had one a year ago when he had the cardiac arrest, and they would not pay for him to go to Encompass Rehab Hospital. They said, put him in a nursing home, that's all we'll pay for. And of course we didn't, we brought him here. But those things, I could do a 4-hour video on Medicare Advantage plans. They're not Advantage, they're the biggest disadvantage you would ever want in your life. You may think you're saving money and, oh boy, this is great. Yeah, as long as you're healthy. Get sick and forget about it. And I worked with Medicare Advantage plans. I worked in the healthcare business for 35 years, doing medical billing and dealing with insurances and everything. And believe me, you don't want a Medicare Advantage plan. Well, that wraps this up. I'm just so grateful Ken is home. He is recuperating. He is rehabilitating. He's slowly getting there. He's got a lot of work to do, but oh my goodness, he's come a long way. And it's a miracle he's even made it. And again, to you all, I thank you so much for all your prayers. And I request and ask you if you could kindly continue those prayers for him so that he can reach some milestones or hurdles that he'll be able to walk on his own again without a walker and things like that. And hey, let's hope, and I believe with prayer this will happen. Not too long from now, Ken will be sitting beside me doing a video and thanking you all for your support and your prayers. All right, let's do that inside beauty tip. My inside beauty tip is the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Can you imagine having any serenity when you are in a situation like a hospital experience, or you're very sick, or your loved one is very sick, and you have all this responsibility in making decisions and agreeing to procedures and medications or not agreeing to them? You know, that sounds like a lot of turmoil, but you really can have serenity when you make these decisions. Serenity means peace and calm and untroubled. You're not troubled by the decisions you're making. Well, if you go to God and you ask Him for the wisdom to know the difference of something you can change and you can't, you'll be able to do it. Now, the key thing I like about this prayer is the courage to change the things I can. It takes courage. It takes courage to fight against a hospital or doctors or nurses or what they're suggesting or what they're telling you you have to do or you can't do. To stand up to them because you think they're the ones that have the authority and the power. They definitely have the knowledge. We don't have the knowledge that nurses have or doctors have, but that doesn't mean we don't have common sense. And that doesn't mean that we don't get direction from God Almighty. If we pray for it, if we ask for it, He'll give it to us. And then we will have that serenity about all the decisions we make. I know it sure has helped me. I thank you so much for being here today. I truly do appreciate it. And until we meet again, this is the old girl signing out. See ya.